Now, how long did it take you from the idea that, okay, I want to make a space, we have enough people here, to actually getting into a space?
Not that long, maybe 4 or 5 months.
Okay.
What we did was we found a local developer who was tearing down a mall and hadn't torn the building down yet. So he effectively rented us a 4,000 square foot old shoe store in the mall for $500 a month. And we moved in there to start. And that's how we really got going. And it was next to the only theater in town, so people were always walking by it.
Yeah.
So it really helped to have kind of public exposure that way. And it was very cheap. So, find somebody locally who's willing to lease you space at a low cost. It doesn't have to be, in a mall or anything like that. But if you can do that to get started, particularly if you can do that, the start low and then build yourself up over time. Most people who own real estate and do it for a living understand the value of that, and almost all of them will do it for you. So that's how I would start. But the space is essential. Without a space, a physical space, you don't have a makerspace. You just have a group of cool people that are having fun meeting once a week. And once a week is really important. Once a month is not enough. Twice a month is not enough. Every week is very important.
Yeah. But would you say that's one of the best ways to create a good community, is by having those regular meetings?
Yep, it's the only way really that I see to make it happen. Meetup.com.
Yep.
Freaking awesome. I mean, it's the reason we succeeded, is Meetup.
Yeah.
So if you had one thing, it was probably a combination of having a strong core group of people with somebody like me who's kind of focused. And I'm retired, and I did it full time for 2 years, basically. I spent 12 hours a day for 2 years making this room. And a space. So, very, very important. Try to stay self-funding from day one as well.
Yeah, or at least if you're getting grants, make sure you have that costed in to know, okay, without the grants, you can still make it out.
The grants try to use that for equipment, things like that.
Yeah.
But you're operating, what the money it costs you to pay your rent, pay
Keep
your
lights
utilities,
on.
and that really you need to figure out how to cover yourselves without grants, if you want to go long term.
And then so, what would you say the breakdown, I know you had your graph up there earlier, but breakdown as far as, is it mostly membership that pays most everything, and then classes and all that is just a smaller percentage? Or
Yeah, basically I think we have, so we're probably doing somewhere between, I think monthly, somewhere between 16 to 18,000 a month in revenue that we have, and about 12, 13 of that is membership. And one or a couple thousand, we have several offices that people
for the
can
co-working,
license in this square foot space. So that's a couple, 3,000 a month, and then classes are sporadic. We don't really take advantage of doing classes. We could make so much more money in classes if we focused on it.
Yeah.
But it's really, we're making ends meet. We try to give away as much as we can.
Yeah.
So the classes we try
make
to
it more valuable to your members by not having it cost more.
Exactly.
And how many square foot is this place total?
It's about, inside is about, I think it's just under 10,000 square feet. And then we have another 2 or 3, I think it's 3,000 square foot under a huge shed out back, which is like where the blacksmith things, the welding and stuff like that is out back. It's open, but it's covered.
I guess what is the hardest part to keeping the space running? Is it pretty much on autopilot now that you have a pretty good community built, or?
I wouldn't call it autopilot, but we have a paid executive director now, Ron Thomas. We don't pay him a lot, but basically a subsistence enough to not have to do something else, barely. So, and that's it. That's the only paid thing. Everything else is volunteer. So, I would say, and really having one person effectively coordinate all the volunteer activity is what keeps it running. So we have, each of the shops has a captain, we call it. So like there's a captain in charge of the potter shop, and her job is to make sure it's got enough equipment, that it's got enough supplies, if something breaks it gets fixed. So, I mean, for instance, Fa is her name, Fa Shimbo, and she's a world famous potter. She's written 20 books on it. She's a chemist, so master. Pottery's about putting the sheen on pottery is all about chemistry. So she has a set of knowledge that's just phenomenal, and that's common. Our machine shop guy used to teach machine shop at Stanford University. So I mean, I could go on and on. It's just you have people that are really good at what they do that then run that area, and there are problems. Things break. People come in and break stuff way more than is cool, and then they don't tell anybody. Not cool at all. And our biggest problem now is we are probably too big. We probably have too many members. I mean, we thought we'd be lucky to get to 100, and here we are now pushing 400, which is at least twice the size it really should be for this space. Although it doesn't fill up too badly. There are times when it's a little crowded in here, but in general, the space works for about that many people. But it's hard to keep a community, where everyone knows each other. Like I'm the original founder. I walked in today and did a walkthrough. I didn't recognize anyone, and there were 20 people.
Yeah.
Not a single person.
Yeah.
Because we have probably 3 to 5 join a day. That's how.
Do you think it'd be better to maybe shard makerspaces after a certain size?
We are having that discussion actually right now. The board is, and I am still on the board. So we're also talking about letting we have one of our members moved down to Texas. He wants to open a Tinkermill, Texas. We have a guy I used to work with in Boulder who wants to do a Tinkermill in Boulder. The Denver Economic Council basically asked us, would you guys be interested in opening a Tinkermill Denver? So, I mean, that's kind of, in our question, we're sort of like, makerspaces by nature are reflections of their local communities.
Yeah.
Do you really want to, franchise? I don't mind them using the name if they wanted. I mean, basically everything we do is open source. So,
yeah.
If somebody wants to take the name, there's not much we probably could, but it would be rude to tell them they couldn't use the name. But I've told the board this: if you don't come up with a way to deal with that, someone else will. Someone will take the name because it's a great name and people will use it. I mean, I'm like Kleenex,
Yeah.
That's a tissue. It's not a Kleenex. It's a tissue.
Yeah.
Right. But I would love it if these were all called Tinkermills as opposed to Makerspaces. Maker is a great word, but Make Magazine is an evil corporation, a for-profit corporation.
Yeah.
Seriously,
I was never a big fan of them, but
those guys, they are taking 15% of the Maker fairs. Did you know that?
15%.
Every Maker Faire out there is a for-profit operation. It is
not
not
a
nonprofit.
They make a pretty good amount of money at 15% too.
So I have a real problem with that. That's why, and we seriously considered not using the word Makerspace because the word maker is in it, and they.
Unfortunately, the other good adjective is like hackerspace, but that kind of gives the wrong connotation to municipalities and all these people.
I think. See it there.
Yeah.
The city council wouldn't.
Because it said hackerspace. Yeah, I know. What is a makerspace? It's not a
use
hackerspace.
Makerspace. And the real difference between those two, and there's a difference, because Den Hack is a hackerspace, and a hackerspace tends towards digital.
Yeah.
And a makerspace tends towards analog. So
yeah, because you're not really hacking when you're machining a piece of aluminum. You're just actually making something.
Atoms and bits. But here's what I believe is happening. When you're machining something, often there is a robotic or a
CNC.
there's a chip in that thing. If you want to do something, it's not just a piece of machinery.
Yeah, everything's becoming digital. So
it's all both. So it really hackerspace, makerspace, it's the same thing now. It's just Makerspace is less scary.
Yeah, definitely.
So go with Makerspace.
What advice would you give anyone who wants to start in their own hometown?
Start a meetup. Do it now. I mean, just get started. That's all. The hardest part is everybody tries to plan. Stop planning. We didn't plan. We basically, what we did was this. We started the meetup. People showed up. We did the founding member. We first agreed, everybody agreed it would be $25 and $50. That was where we started. If you don't have any money, throw in $25 a month. So people started doing it. And then we did so that started getting people to feel like they belong to something. But then we made the founder thing, which had a time frame. If you didn't put the $300 to be a founder in, 9-month period, actually 6-month period. At the end of that, we had several people who wanted to, but they had missed the date. We said no to their money because everybody realized this was going to succeed and still wanted to start throwing money in. But that getting that founder money will get you enough money probably to get started with a space. And then we did two or three primary things. We wrote a membership agreement, which I have online. You can download it, vetted by lawyers. Write a really liability waiver. Ours effectively says, if you cut your arm off, too bad. And we also put a photo waiver in that liability waiver. So, if anybody's doing anything in here, we can take pictures of it. So they've signed those. So liability waiver, photo waiver, very important. And integrate with every possible community entity you can, particularly the city, but also things like your local schools. Really important, your K-12, your public schools, not so much your charter schools. The charter schools effectively want to be you. So they're looking for ways to suck off resources from you. Same with your community college, they're probably doing that. We had bad experiences with any for-profit entity out there. Just stick with nonprofits, because you're a nonprofit. Unless you're not. If you're not a nonprofit, you should turn this off now and stop watching me. Because that's not what this is about. This is about building knowledge in a community that's shared among everyone.
As far as, I know you said you're 501c3, there's other things, I think, like an LC3 Corp or something like that.
Yeah, very similar.
And other like benefit corps. Did you weigh the benefits, or you just went with 501c3?
No, we decided not to do that, specifically because it created, whenever there's profit associated, people want a piece of it, period. So no profit. Got to be a nonprofit. Plus, we did the 501c3 almost immediately, and you can there is a company that specializes, if you want, I can give you the name, and it's a CPA firm down in Atlanta, Georgia. They do hundreds a week, and they got us our 501c3 in 60 days. So it cost us $800 to the IRS and $500 to them, $1,300, and poof, you're a 501c3. And that all of a sudden makes everything a donation, a write-off. So that's when equipment started showing up. The 501c3 is essential to Makerspace success. If you can't get that, chances are fairly minimal that you'll succeed long term.
That's it.
And I would not do anything that has profit associated with it. Because the second you do that, everyone wants a piece. And then you lose the sense of community, you lose the sharing, you lose volunteer, everything, which is you have to make it work. So I would strongly advise against any for-profit makerspace. There is a thing called Tech Shop.
Yeah. I went and visited a few of those, yeah.
Great idea. Love it. Expensive as hell. I mean, you can, for only $5,000, build your prototype and yourself after months of training and spending money on equipment, basically. And it would cost you $25,000 to have somebody build it for you. But that's their niche is, the 1/2 of people that want to build it themselves and are willing to sit down and develop the skills to do that on a laser cutter and a 3D printer and a Arduino program, whatever it is that they're doing. And then at the end, 6 or 9 months later, they've got like the Square. The Square was done that way. It was created in a makerspace by a guy who sat and learned all this stuff and built the first prototypes in a makerspace or in Tech Shop that he was able to then turn into a real business. So there's a place for that, but makerspaces aren't that. They're something else totally different. They can help the manufacturing industrial world massively, though, in terms of people learning things. Like we have regular classes on all our machines, like our Bridgeport, and we have a Mytech CNC, and a large 4x8 foot shop bot that rocks, all kinds of cool stuff. Plus all the latest stuff. We've got a resin-based 3D printer. We've got several ABS type 3D printers. So pretty much any kind of equipment that you can imagine. We generally are on the cutting edge of it, as well as the old stuff. Building a wooden box that has a metal piece, it has an Arduino chip in it, that has a 3D printed piece to it. Those things all together become some sort of product, right? But you couldn't do it without all of those pieces.
Yeah, you need this
all the way through.
You need the mass, a large enough mass of people to support enough tools to actually be able to make, have a wide enough variety to make actual things instead of, you got a wood shop that's great, but you're very limited unless you got, a soldering station and everything else. So
it all goes together. Very synergistic.
Yeah.
Well, I think that I've kind of said it before, but I think every community needs to have a makerspace because every community needs to have an innovation center, a place where things can be born. And those things don't have to necessarily be highly technical. We have a lot of highly creative people here that are artists, effectively. I'd say it's 80% engineer, 20% artisan, from the people who are making stuff perspective, which is about 90% of people, and about 5 to 10% are business people. And they're trying to figure out how to turn a business into something real. So, having the artists and the engineers together, I spent about 10 years at Apple Computer.
Yeah.
And what I learned at Apple was if you take the artists and you take the engineers and you make them sit next to each other, they will hate each other, and they will make extraordinary things. Extraordinary. Because the engineers are getting the artistic bents built into what they're doing. The artists are seeing what it takes to make something that's technical. And they modify, oh, we could do this then. So you get this phenomenal creativity that doesn't happen anywhere else in the world. Anywhere. Except places like Apple that know that, and Makerspaces. That's where I would end it.
Awesome. Thank you.